Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. Go ahead and open it up to Q&A. Anything goes and fire away.
Go ahead, Robert, then Sandra.
Good evening, Greg.
Hey, how are you, Robert?
Pretty good. You can answer questions about any topic?
Yeah, well, I started chuckling. I was like, I have a really narrow window of things I can answer about. You get me out of that window. Things usually don't go as well.
I wanted to tease Sam a little bit.
Asking some computer questions.
Yeah, I do have some difficult computer questions, Greg. Let's talk about them. No, actually,
I think you need to meditate on them and really find that answer deep within.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
I do have a question. I have a new client, and I haven't really started working with her. She's the mom of 8 boys, and she has recently gotten custody of them from their dad.
Okay.
Their dad has abused them in many manners over the years. The older 5, I think I'm pretty comfortable working with and developing a plan. And for those, for the older boys, I was thinking something along the abuse protocol you gave out in one of the study groups, and possibly even starting with the trauma release technique first. But the 3 younger boys, I'm a little concerned about how to approach them. They're 5, 7, and 9.
Right.
What can we do for them?
So give me a little bit more. So dad was like physically abusive, or just like emotionally, mentally, verbally?
Emotionally, mentally, verbally, and I would say the way I can describe it easily is negligent, physically abusive.
Okay, gotcha.
Beyond that, I can't confidently say much else beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, I get the gist of it. Like, as soon as you start to see certain things, it's like other things are usually present.
Yes.
And so, are they still going to be interacting with the dad? Is it like 50-50 custody? Like, what's the deal?
The 5 younger ones, as of the moment, the dad can see them without anyone else present for 12 hours a week. The 3 older boys do not have to communicate with the dad.
Okay. So, like, it's a very big situation, a very dynamic situation. And, you could have like a lot of approaches, but this is what I say, like, this is what I've done in times past. Like, it could be a family unit. It could be like a group of family members that aren't necessarily like father, son, mother, son, that kind of thing. It could just be a group of family members, could even be in the workplace. But part of the issue, like, this is like when we start talking about like different approaches, like symptom-oriented treatment versus system-oriented treatment, this I would even go past those things, because like you're not really going to be able to establish a lot of help in those areas, because there is you could say a family dynamic, but I would say there's a pattern of behavior that has been there for a long time, be it that it was chosen or ingrained in a person, but it's not just one person with another person. You have this dynamic between the group.
Yes.
And so whenever you look at something like that, really, for you to help each person individually, is you got to break that pattern. Like, it's just bottom line. Like, if you don't break that pattern, even like, for example, like I knew this person, he's talked about it in classes and stuff, but his dad was very, 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 very hard on him emotionally, mentally, and everything. And, he had siblings and everything. And when he left, he's been out of the house for 20 years. Like I mean, it's not like it's a new thing, right? And kind of what happens is in a dynamic like this, even though you get out of the house physically, you kind of pick up where dad left off, like in this situation. And like the same behaviors that his dad did like to him as he left, he was, trying to find his way and everything, but his life kind of presented difficulties. He just continued doing what his dad did to him, but it was just to himself. Like he would have the same conversation, say the same things, like, you know what I mean? Like it just
Yes.
continued because he's ingrained in a pattern. And ironically, this is what I was going to talk about on Wednesday night. So I would say also let's have a discussion tomorrow night in the Master Healing Technique, because I was going to open it up to conversation and then talk about like how to go through. And of course, it's the first question that presents here tonight. So,
and I've been waiting to ask this question till I knew for sure that I was going to be working with them.
Well, it's a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting dynamic. And I mean, it really applies to everybody. Sometimes we're aware of these patterns because sometimes it's not necessarily like here we're talking about like kind of an abusive pattern, but it could be things that just don't serve you anymore, or things that you've outgrown, or things that, you got into a workplace for a decade and there was just a weird dynamic there. And it just, you get like a little bit ingrained in the pattern. And so we have touched on this a couple of times before, but usually very, very, very lightly. But, tonight and tomorrow, we'll go into it a bit heavier and just even talk it out so there's more understanding. But this is the way that, like I usually address it, is there's a couple areas that you want to tackle. And honestly, all the kids, the mom, whoever it is, I would do this on everybody.
Okay.
And it is, so first I'll tell you the chakras, right? So it's front and back spleen. It is the ajna, and I would do them in this order. Actually, I take that back. Do the ajna first, then do the front and back spleen.
Okay.
And then the basic. And then the back throat. After that, you're probably going to see like a lot of expelling out of the spine because you are breaking a pattern. Anytime you're breaking a pattern, there's kind of three places you want to look at: the spleen, the basic, and the spine. And because of the nature of what you're going after, that's why you do the ajna on the back throat. But so what you're tackling is going after the ability to break free from patterns and to let go of and disengage things that you've outgrown, things that don't work for you anymore, things that are negative, but because of situations are reinforced. You want to kind of go after those things. And for this, you're also wanting them to shift out of the left brain thinking, because you'll get a lot of like, well, this is the way I always do it, or this is the way my mind works. That's actually part of the problem. Like that, it's not that they're doing something wrong, it's doing something that is associated with the pattern. And if you think of what is awakening, what is enlightening, it is literally shifting out of the everyday mind. Like the first phase is shifting out of the everyday mind and shifting over to the intuitive mind. And so something that's beyond the senses. And so even when you hear feedback like that, it's somebody still engaged in a pattern that is causing them suffering. And they wouldn't verbalize it like that. Like, it's not like they're doing it intentionally or maliciously or whatever. It's just those patterns have so much gravity to them that they like suck up all the energy, and it makes it hard to see outside of the pattern. It's really super hard. And so, this is one of the things, like when I was doing the trauma stuff back in the day, we would look at the person, and the thing that I kept saying to the other psychologists was, we got to treat the family. Like we can't just treat the person, because all we're going to do is get them a little bit better and then send them back into, it's like cleaning somebody up and then going, okay, now go jump back in that toxic water and go for a swim and you'll probably feel better. It's not going to feel better. Like they're just going to get sucked back into it. It's like, unless we break up the dynamic, anything we do is really kind of temporary. And the key is the spleen. You have to really open up the spleen. So, with your energy healing, you just form the intention of like patterns, the inability to break free of a pattern, let go of things that you've outgrown or negative, or, you just kind of contemplate it for a little bit and go after it. Kabbalistically, or I should say not kabbalistically, with essential oils, it was Kabbalistic essential oils in my head, so that I took it. You can use any form of aloes, like aloes. You could also use acacia, and you could also use saffron. The issue with saffron is saffron's probably gone away from being produced. So let's just stick with acacia, and we're trying to find it, but it's not looking good. So I would say acacia or aloes wood. You can just have them inhale it. You can have them think of the person. You can have them think of an incident. They don't necessarily have to inhale it on the chakra if it helps them, but just the inhalation will actually start breaking that up. I always find that it's a little bit better that they concentrate on, how we do situational awareness and then you go to the body. I would do situational awareness and then the spine itself. Like, you're going to have to really clean up the spine. Might as well just do it in that place. And, it's going to be different from person to person or group to group. And so hard to predict how long it's going to take. That he only sees them 12 hours a week is pretty good. A little bit of time that might even float away, and he might not even do the 12 hours a week. I mean, that's a very common thing to have happen. And so at first,
there's a very good chance that the court will take away his rights to see them.
If he's only getting 12 hours a week, he's circling the drain. Like he's probably going to lose rights pretty quick.
The next thing that's probably going to happen is someone will have to be present the whole time he's with the boys.
Yeah. I agree. Like, that's a weird amount of time to let him have custody. And
yeah, let's just say that there's a whole series of backstory that's this has been ongoing for years, and even I've been monitoring it for 6 months now, and things take a long time to change.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where I would go. The thing that usually happens after that is trauma is released, but it's not trauma from people treating each other bad. It's trauma from a change of perception. So that idea of like the blend for the spleen, or even just helichrysum, it's to unwind the trauma from the letting go of these patterns. Because even though it's a pattern that causes us potentially immense suffering, even when we let it go, we still grieve it.
Okay. So one of the things you said, for each of the people involved, how long it takes will be different. How do we know when each person is, I'll say, cooked?
They'll start to have spontaneous action. They'll spontaneously start breaking out of the pattern. They'll like behave a particular way, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, and it might not be across the board, but they'll just have a day where like, yeah, I always cross the street over there. I'm going to cross it this way. Or you know what? I'm not crossing the street again.
Okay.
You know, you'll just start to see, it's not like they're going to verbalize something. You'll notice a change in behavior where they're just like, I'm not doing this pattern anymore.
And in your experience, what's the range of time that this might happen over?
Sometimes it's a few weeks, like in really extreme cases where it was like dissociative identity disorder, which is multiple personality. It was like usually around 9 to 10 months.
Okay.
I mean, that would be like super extreme. So I would say less than a year, you know, seeing them once a week. Something like this, maybe a couple months, but it's hard to say. It depends on, I mean, I say this with no judgment, like, you know, just, I just gotta like kind of qualify this. But some people have a strong spirit and kind of can push back or survive it. And sometimes people have a fragile spirit and it really is devastating to them. And in cases like that, it really depends. That's probably the biggest factor. And
Okay.
It's a hard thing to predict, but when they have a strong spirit, they break out of it kind of quick. When the spirit is a little bit fragile, it takes a while. Like, you know, because even if you break them out of it, they're so kind of traumatized by it, they get a little overwhelmed. Now, if that's the case, you have a couple of options. I would, if the spirit is fragile, I would give them galbanum, either having them wear it or a couple drops on the wrist. You could also add them taking internally time. I give them a little bit of like the strength to push back against somebody screwing with them. And the extra difficulty here is they're children of the person, you know, so it makes it a little harder. Like if this was a boss at work, be a little bit easier to get it. But when it's like a parent, yeah.
Can we
It's
do
almost,
this?
this is a weird thing to say, but it's almost like they got to get to the point where they divorce themselves of the parent. Not literally, but like to the place where they don't want the parent's approval. And that is a case by case basis. You know, even for me, like I would say, you know, granted, I didn't have somebody guiding me or doing any of that kind of stuff, but I would say it was my early 30s before I got there. You know?
I guess part of my question is with the 3 younger boys and their ages, can we do oils with them?
Yeah, especially aloes for this, I would totally do it. Like
Okay.
the oils that we're talking about, yeah.
So aloes or acacia would be fine.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
them.
they're super heady and esoteric and super cleansing. Normally I would say it's not that these are bad, but it's like they're a bit more esoteric. You know what I
Okay.
mean? But for these kids, it's kind of like the more you're able to get it at the age that they're at, the more it will diminish the impact it will have on their personality as they get older.
I do know that the group of the 8 boys are very strong-willed and supportive of each other.
That's a good sign. Yeah, very good sign.
Even though they're playful, and
Mhm.
that playfulness is how they get hurt at their dad's house.
Mhm.
But it's not that they're intending to hurt each other, they're just goofing around.
Oh no, they're boys. Like
Yeah,
that's
they're
what
boys.
boys do.
Exactly.
That's totally what boys do. Like I would say something's up if they weren't getting hurt and wrestling, and
Right.
like that's
Uh,
just what boys do. Like that's
it-
nothing.
Yeah, okay. So I like this approach because there are some, shall we say, spiritual, mystical abilities that some of the boys are exhibiting already.
Yeah.
And I want to allow for that and guide that and encourage it, and however it unfolds.
Yeah.
Uh,
So this is what I would say about that is it's funny. It's like you were sitting in my office today. So I was having this conversation with somebody about a different version of this. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's not family, sometimes it's in business or whatever. In this particular case, it was in business. And I said, here's the thing, like when somebody's being really super hostile and aggressive or abusive or whatever, for one, you need to survive it, get away from it, do whatever. But if you can keep your wits about you and not lose sight of who you are, as weird as it sounds, it's an empowerment. It's driving deeper into you, identifying with the soul rather than with the personality, the body, how things are going in the environment. It forcibly makes you go inside and go, I gotta find the oasis to like be able to survive this. And to be able to go inside and do that, and to also not hate the person who's doing it. If you can pull that off, spiritual development is rapid, like really rapid, but it's also tough. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's easy to say that, but when you're in the middle of it, you're like, they're
Yeah.
being pretty rough, and it's
And it breaks along age boundaries, is that
yeah.
3 older boys were given permission by the court to not see their dad.
Yeah.
And for them, it was like,
I actually kind of like that, because I think that they can be a sounding board for the other 5 and
Yes.
be a little bit of a cheerleader for the other 5. And I like that there's so many of them, because if it was just one person, it would be really super hard to break out. 2, as long as they're getting along, they kind of become like teammates on how to handle it. And as the numbers kind of grow, it's a little bit harder to break out of, but a little bit easier depending on how you look at it. And if they're a little bit strong-willed and, they have things going on in their life, they're going to grow up and probably just walk away from the dad. I mean, that's what happens. They get older and they're like, I don't have to hang out with you anymore.
Right.
I don't have to spend time with you. I don't have to do this anymore.
Right. And that's enough to put him in his place. And that's the breaking of the cycle.
Mhm.
So I see that happening, but it's too early. It's too soon to tell, because there's still interactions and there's still a lot going on, and activity and commotion and chaos.
Yeah.
So, okay. I think
think of it like this. You're just trying to redirect the momentum and motion of that group into a different direction. You're probably not going to resolve everything, but as they get older, they'll resolve themselves. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's like you just gotta buy them space and redirect the momentum of where they're going to where, as they get older, they're able to step out of it and when they start finding, a partner and stuff like that, the partner, it continues the process and especially with boys, they usually do better when they start interacting with somebody they're being, partner or intimate with.
Right.
They step up
Okay.
their game a bit, speaking from personal experience. You know what I mean? Left to their own devices,
Right.
Yeah.
Someone to set a standard and an expectation, and they
Yeah.
step up to it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is really good, and I'll be on the call tomorrow night and see what questions I can ask tomorrow night.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to start with a conversation. The whole thing with the master healing techniques is not just I'm going to keep laying out like patterns and things to do. Is I want to spend time talking about theory, and I want to spend time talking about where people are at and presenting, not like conditions where this is what you do for asthma. Like, it's like there's certain things, there's certain like targets that you want to hit as a person, especially a person that's trying to grow and evolve or heal, that aren't just based on a symptom. And so to start like going, okay, how much of this is an issue? How do you perceive it? How would you move forward in addressing this? And then start talking about this like mystical approach of addressing some of these things that are, the way that I had it in my head was like esoteric, like developmental things that you're trying to address, like segments or aspects that you're trying to address.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like, in the Sharanagati class, how each letter had like, they could all be, there could be several letters that were tied to particular chakra or Sephiroth, but they had different aspects to them. Like, and so like that's also kind of this idea of like tapping into the intuitive mind and stepping out of this and looking at things other than just how your senses perceive something. There's certain targets that a soul needs to hit to take it to the next step or the next level. And those things really aren't laid out for you. There's meditation, there's all these things, but there's targets. And working all the things that we know, but going after these targets, it accelerates the process. It brings things to your awareness where you go like, oh, I'm doing good, or I need to refine this.
And I think for me, that'll help. I guess the way I perceived it to this point is, here's someone presenting, how do I figure out what to do next? What
for these people or for yourself?
For anyone, myself
Yeah.
or anyone.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have a series of conversations, and it's really drawing upon all the theosophical stuff from the Western approaches and Buddhism and inner Christianity, and not so much the practices themselves, but the like the things that you're trying to address to like evolve or grow or end your suffering or be happy or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Different traditions call things by different names, but a lot of times we're talking about the same thing, just very, very different terminology.
And I've noticed that when you talk in class and in study group and you present all the different perspectives on the same topic from different belief systems, and they're just different words to describe the same energy.
Yeah.
And
even different perceptions of even what it is. But when you really start refining it, it's almost like something just wakes up inside you.
mm-hmm.
It's not something you're needing to learn or integrate. It's just something you're trying to go, come on, wake up, come on, time to go to school, time to, get up, like eat your breakfast. It's just like you just need to tap on those pieces and just work them for a little bit.
Yeah. And also to know not to ask Greg about computer questions.
Yeah. Oh, no. Because if you want to see a good comedy act, let Greg talk about computers. I'm not joking. I have a couple of iPads. I actually don't own a computer. Like everybody around me has computers. I do not. I
That's why
hand
you
it
have
off.
everyone around you.
Yeah, I hand it off. Like I'm so bad with computers.
Well, thank you, Greg, and I'm sure we'll talk more tomorrow.
Thank you. Even the iPad, if you think about it, it's not even like you have to type in or code. It's just a bunch of pictures. I want to do that picture.
I wish a lot of
Show
my
me some
customers,
pictures. I'll figure out what I need to do.
I wish a lot of my computer customers could get that though, that it's just pictures. Don't worry about what it is you're clicking. Just
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at the picture
Just
and
look at
then
the
do it.
pictures.
So you have a good attitude toward it.
Yeah, well, good. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Okay, take care.
And then go ahead, Sandra, then Ralph.
Hey, Sandra.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. That was an interesting conversation with Robert because I have a relative who is going through the same thing with a couple of kids and a divorced father. So that I found that a very interesting conversation.
And so like here we're talking about it like that kind of situation, but it could be just, you know, a really simple and actually kind of pleasant version of this is you work till the age of retirement and then you retire, and then what do you do after that? You know, like I always used to crack up because I would have all these clients that would be working super hard. They'd retire and they'd be going, oh, I can't wait. I'm gonna go to the beach. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna sleep in. And then they would retire and then fill their schedule up every week, and they would be busier than when they were working with all these other kind of things that they wanted to do, and didn't enjoy retirement. And so, you know, it takes them a few years and then eventually they start to unwind and do some of the things that they thought about. But it's breaking that pattern of, hey, I worked all these years working this way. Now that I'm done, can I disengage that pattern and step into a new pattern? Right. So even, you know, like we were saying, it's the use of aloes. And even when you look at in certain traditions, and in the Jewish tradition, like when they took Christ off the cross, you know, they are putting, you know, they wash the body and they were putting him in the robes, you know, the things that the garment. And but they covered him in aloes and myrrh. And if you look at what aloes does, even for like a great teacher, a great avatar, still has to break the pattern of the body to become pure essence. Like that is actually what that's doing. You are disentangling, disengaging, and breaking the pattern associated with the form as you go into the essence. And so the body itself is physical, so it has a big impact on the essence. And it, you know, here we're talking about situations where it was difficult or there was, you know, some abuse or something. But you know, even at times from your life, you know, you get out of high school, you go to college, and get out of college, and then you go to into the workforce. Those are shifts and transitions where you have to let go of the old pattern and engage this new pattern. And you know, there's kind of segments in a person's life where that happens, and there's segments that everybody goes through because of you know, just being a baby up to the time of passing, where you hit some of these segments. And you know, the more that we face them with, doesn't even have to be awareness, but just the awareness that there's something like that, where you just go, you know, something's going on, I'm not quite sure, I need to break out of this. So like, again, talking about it from the point of view of like the Christian tradition, the Buddhist tradition, Christians talk about being born again in Christ. Buddhists will say, I will die many times, you know, before I'm liberated, like many, many times. And so at one point you'll say, oh, that's about reincarnation. But a lot of times they're talking about it in a single lifetime. You know, you're doing something and you let it go and you embrace something new. And if you look at it from a Kabbalistic point of view, you could say the crown chakra, you know, which is the enter point of divine energy. It's where soul energy comes in. It's how you experience oneness. It's tied to new beginnings. You know, it's tied to this aspect of new beginnings. And just doing the same thing over and over again over a long period of time just takes you a little bit farther away from the soul every time. Now, there's things that you need to do to maintain the body, to maintain your life, to maintain your finances, to do all these kinds of things. But, you know, just like in the week, you know, you work 5-6 days, and then, you know, Sunday or Saturday, if you're Jewish, is like the Sabbath day or the holy day. And it doesn't mean that you have to embrace this the whole week, but once a week, just for a little bit, like touch it, just touch it. That's why it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming practice, but just don't lose sight of it. Just touch this essence, just, you know, every week. And so it can be very practical. Like if you look at it in a manifestation in the workplace, say you're in IT, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, in 3 or 4 years, you're going to be out of a job. Like you can't do it. You have to keep touching this new thing, this new beginning, this regeneration of something, this reboot with the software, the hardware, whatever it is. And if you don't, you don't keep growing in the industry, and then at some point you end up not being relevant anymore. And so it is just the flow of nature. But you know, who doesn't like to be comfortable, and who doesn't like to be, you know, where we don't have to make a lot of effort that way? But again, it doesn't have to be a constant, but just from time to time, you have to be able to touch it and just go, I'm just gonna let some of this go and bring something new in. And you know, it's an interesting thing. Some people are more wired for it than others, but it's just part of the creative process. It's the part of life. It's part of our spiritual development, you could say.
Well, it's interesting. Since I've been retired, it's been a big, big change with me.
Oh, I
Because
bet.
I've discovered spirituality, and I've gone from Tai Chi to Qigong to
Oh, nice.
pranic healing, and now studying with you, and it's completely changed my life.
Oh, good.
So, well, I do have a rather mundane question to ask
Mhm.
you. I have a strange thing on the
Mhm.
inside of my left arm.
Okay.
It appears I have pulled a muscle. It must be the bicep. It's right above the bend in the arm,
Okay.
and it's the muscle is like sticks out. It's about 2 inches long and an inch wide. And at first, it only bothered me when I was in bed and I had my arm either stretched out or
So
bent.
like it's bulging out from where it normally is, like it's kind of
Yes,
poking
you can
out.
see it. I mean, if I compare it
Well-
to my other arm, it's flat.
Were you doing something like lifting something, or did
Well, I think I
you-
might have strained it when I was lugging a heavy suitcase around. And, you know, it would bother me at night when I changed position, but during the day, you know, I'm moving my arm all around, it didn't hurt. But now it's starting to hurt. So I wondered if you had a suggestion. I've tried lymph liniment and marjoram in tamanu oil, which I
Mhm.
put on it. I was wondering if you had any other ideas.
Well, you could have a trigger point, but was there any bruising, discoloration?
No, there wasn't, and it's
Okay.
not even particularly
I
sore.
mean, you're
depressed.
kind of describing what could be like a little bit of a partial tear sometimes, where like it would tear up here, but it would ball up down there. But I think you probably just have a bad spasm. like
Oh.
like a spasm would pop out like that as well. But like usually with a tear, you would see bruising. Usually there's an incident, like I fell or I was trying to lift something, and usually there's a big incident. It's
Mhm.
not like it just randomly happened. And so I would say let's treat this as a trigger point.
Okay.
So uh marjoram could help. And so what I would say is also like treat the whole, like from the elbow, like the crease, all the way up to the shoulder. Like
Okay.
put it on and just really rub it back and forth.
Okay.
And you're right in a trigger point area, which makes me think it's a trigger point. Ginger could be okay. Cedar could be okay. One of the really soft thymes or black pepper could be okay.
Okay.
I mean, you had good instincts. Marjoram could be tried, lymphatic stuff could be tried, but it probably needs something a little bit stronger for circulation. So do you have anything, any of
Are
those?
you talking about lymph or blood when you're talking about circulation?
Actually, both. Like needs more blood getting in there, but the blood is also, or the lymphatic system is also tied to circulation. And so sometimes you're having to break up something that's really super stagnant lymphatically. And so you do put blood in there, try to drive blood in there and then keep moving the lymph. So do you have any of those, like ginger, black pepper, like
I've got them. Yeah, I've got them
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, so put it just a little tiny bit of the carrier oil and then several drops of the oil, and then just get in there and just rub in there. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable, but really kind of do a little bit of friction stuff on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if it's not really changing, like bring it back to my attention next week.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is it a good idea to use something like lymph liniment that I
Yeah.
have?
Yeah. I would rotate all the things you said. But yeah,
Okay.
you were on the right track.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, well, it was Ralph, now it's Troy, so, Troy then Ralph, I guess. Yep.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Barely though, you are quite faint, just to give you heads up.
Okay, let me see if I can turn off the Bluetooth and help that. Is that better?
Oh, a lot better.
Okay, awesome. I've been using the Blue Lotus,
Mhm.
and it's been helping me once I start using it to kind of unwind and let go
Okay.
at bedtime. Sort of struggling with like the section before that of like just winding down and getting myself to stop doing tasks earlier.
Okay.
But once
So it's just like once you start doing it, it kind of is helping, but getting to the point where you're going to sit down and inhale it is a little bit of a thing.
exactly.
Yeah, you and I might be related. I mean, we might be related, like a distant cousin or something. Sounds like we have a very similar genetics. Yeah. Okay. Let me think this out for a sec. Let's maybe have you use like when the time comes, granted, like you're having a hard time like sitting down to unwind to do this, so we can keep this into account. So you can start by like maybe taking a drop or two of like something like aloe C and rub it on your Ming Men. And then even if you're standing up doing something, go, okay, I'm gonna take a few long, slow, deep breaths, and you inhale on your Ming Men a couple of times. And then if you're able to stand there a little bit longer, after 3 or 4 breaths, you go, okay, my Ming Men, but maybe I'll do my back card and then the crown and keep moving the energy up. And that should help you like unwind.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that the Blue Lotus, I think we're on the right track now. Like it's been a little bit of a tough one, but I think if we can engage the Blue Lotus, there's still going to be other things that we do to augment these things, but I think just the circadian rhythms rough. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, looking back, it makes sense. In the moment, I was, ooh, boy, I don't know. But, you know, when you start treating it and you start to have even a little bit of like, it usually means something was up, you know, because if you think about it, like the pineal gland is also associated with like melatonin and like all kinds of things that are sleep related, sleep cycles. And so the more that you kind of tackle this, and we'll have to keep augmenting a little bit, but I think you're on the right track.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you for that. I have a small bottle of aloes from one of the classes I'll use to do that.
Yeah, and it could be aloe C, it could be white oud, it could be, you know, in any of those, in any of the oud type substances.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will do. The other thing is I think I'm grinding my teeth and I'm noticing like a feeling of like stagnation, sort of like a just dull pain, and it feels like the lymph in my like left jaw. I have a lot of sensation like in the left side of my head, left jaw, left ear, the nodes in the throat under the jaw. And I don't know if I'm just getting like a lot of kind of sensation from, you know, grinding at night, and then that's gradually building up into an issue or what. But I was wondering if you could look.
I would really work the lymph nodes in your armpits. Like
Okay.
I think things just aren't able to drain, and then it starts causing like spasms and fascial restrictions and tension and trigger points, and it just when I look at you, your armpits look really impacted.
Okay.
Probably, I mean, it could be a little bit from work, but it's probably could also be like from doing a lot of healings, or you know, there's all kinds of reasons it could be, you know. The kind of work you're doing, maybe stress, but the arms are close, you know, close in. It could just be a lymphatic issue, but the lymph nodes in the armpits are very, very blocked up.
Okay. So what do you recommend this?
Like you could use like bay laurel, you could use what were you using the other day when that did for you? Remember when we did one armpit and then the other?
Yes, I'm trying to remember. It wasn't Solomon's hyssop, was it? It was something more limpy.
I thought it was more lymphy, but it might have been just hyssop.
I think it might have been.
Yeah, you know, like so you could use like bay laurel, you could use like lymphatic blend, but you remember like a week or two ago we did a thing where we did left armpit, right armpit, both armpits, and then we did like throat and throat minor. I think it might have even been last week.
That was last Wednesdays with the hyssop.
Yeah. So do that with just even hyssop. You know, if you have hyssop, just use hyssop. Let's see if that works. And we posted that yet? The Wednesday night thing?
I was going to tomorrow.
Yeah. So she's gonna post it tomorrow, but basically just inhale for like 50 inhalations on one armpit. Like don't even do both at the same time.
Oh, yeah, I did the recording. Yeah, from last week.
Right.
Yeah, the recording from last week's up. I'll get it.
Okay. So she's gonna send you a link for it. So like a bunch of inhalations on one armpit, then do the other armpit, then do them both together. Like even just doing them both at the same time sometimes isn't deep enough. So you just really go deep on one. And then if you're having problems on one side, just spend extra time on just that one armpit.
Okay.
I mean, like when you really work it, you'll feel it up in your neck, up into your jaw, up into your head, like up to about like right here. You'll just feel it kind of go all up in that area, and it starts to even open up the chest a little bit.
Okay, great. I'll
And
get
then
those-
still do throat and throat minor, especially throat minor.
Okay, yeah, I noticed throat minor a lot, like
Yeah.
kind of all the time.
Yeah. That's a good one to work all the time.
Okay,
You know, because
All right.
it does a thing for the neck, it does a thing for the chest, it does a thing for the bronchioles and the lungs. It's a little quiet. It can be a little bit, I don't want to say it's like when it's blocked, it could be a little mischievous thing. It's just, it's like you make the bed and you leave one corner undone. That's the throat minor chakra. Like it still needs to be mopped up a little bit. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, will do. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, and keep us posted on that. I'm very curious to see how the circadian rhythm treatment is going to do for you.
Okay, we'll do. I'll check back in Saturday during class.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
All right. Thanks so much.
And then go ahead, Ralph, then David.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg. Okay, so first off, I'm having a flaky internet connection on this end, so I need a good pH process for taking care of that.
Yeah. So what you want to do is you get some tinfoil and you make yourself a hat, and then you put the hat on, and it increases the potency of your Wi-Fi.
Okay, good.
That's about all I got. All I know is tinfoil. People love tinfoil, and I love tinfoil like crazy people love tinfoil. I love tinfoil. So I've just deduced that I'm probably a little bit crazy, but other than that, that's about all I got for you.
Okay, all right. Cleaning up some notes from this weekend's classes.
Uh-huh.
I will start with an elderly relative of mine.
Okay.
Who's going into cognitive decline.
Okay.
And so we were thinking about doing sage and basil
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah.
And you had there was a mention that you do it in tonic or in oil. If we're doing
I would
it,
suggest basil internally and sage as like a body tonic.
okay, that answers the question. I was going to ask how long between, but
I would internal on the basil. I mean, they can always inhale each one, but you want to get the sage on the body.
okay, all right. That answers that question.
How much internal?
2 or 3 drops internally on the basil. You know, in a little water, a little juice, a little something, and yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. That takes care of that question. Unconscious blend for asthma. Would we inhale that or use that internal?
Yeah, you would inhale it. You could also put it in a little lotion and on the chest. In the beginning, I would just have them inhale out of the bottle. And then after a little while, you can start applying it to the chest and in the body, like 4 or 5 drops in some lotion, and then just right here.
Okay. All right.
It's got a lot of larch in it, and larch is really super good for that.
Okay. Naoli, if we're going to apply that topically, can we put that in witch hazel?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Naoli is really good to put all over the body. It's really kind of fortifying and invigorating, and also can potentially help produce allergies.
Okay. So many years ago, in one of the first times I ran into essential oils, they were talking about putting essential oils neat in the arch of the foot. If I'm going to apply oils to the feet, is the arch a good place to go to, or is there a better place on the foot?
What are you trying to do?
Just
Is it just
general,
in general?
general applications.
Yeah. Arch is good, especially if there are oils that can be a little bit sensitizing. Like a good example would be, you could probably put a couple drops of tarragon on your wrist, but it might irritate the skin a little bit. But if you
Mhm.
put it on like the palm of your hand or the sole of your feet, won't irritate it at all, because different parts of the body, the skin is different in different areas.
Mhm.
And so things like that, if you're wanting to hit the bloodstream quickly, put it
Yeah.
on top of the foot, because there's less fatty tissue on the top of the foot, so it will penetrate and hit the bloodstream at a much faster rate. If
Okay.
you're looking at trying to impact the energy body, do in between the toes, like this.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind that there is the potential for some irritation because the skin in here is a little bit more sensitive, like in between the toes.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would keep it to things that are very soothing, like spikenard, lavender, even sandalwood, lang lang, something like that. But
Mhm.
that
Okay.
would be more because, like, you're hitting a lot of the meridians that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Okay, for me in doing sleep, in the endocrine class
Mhm.
on page 4, we had for symptoms of circadian rhythm disruption.
Mhm.
You had under number 4C treatment, you had suggested using Apotheohola for body
Oh, yeah.
awareness, spinal
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
awareness.
Mhm.
Okay, so is that so I go to sleep pretty rapidly, but then I'll typically wake up about 2:30, 3:00, someplace in there. And recently I've taken to inhaling tarragon. I seem to be going back to sleep quicker, but if I could avoid waking up at that time, that would be really nice.
So if you're falling asleep and you're asleep, I mean, I would still probably use the Apothel Yohola. And you could do both. You could do a little tarragon and then do the Apothel Yohola.
Mhm.
That was a substitute for one of the lotuses or the ginger lily or something.
Yes.
But if you want to augment that, and this doesn't even have to be an essential oil. This could just be something you go down to the health food store and get.
Mhm.
But I would take like a capsule or two or a drop or two of St. John's wort right as you're going to bed.
Okay.
And there was a study done like 25 years ago or something
Mhm.
that when people took St. John's wort right as they go into bed, and not very much, like a capsule to 2 capsules,
Right.
it didn't make them fall asleep faster. It didn't make them go like deeper in sleep, but it prolonged the amount of time you stayed asleep. And so if you had the tendency to wake up in the night,
Mhm.
you started buying more time, like
Okay.
you go longer and longer.
Mhm.
For me, working those circadian rhythms will make me last longer in the night before, at some point in the night, I get up and go pee,
Yeah.
oh man, I gotta go do it at some point. Right. And so it will make it, I'll make it much longer before that happens. The other one is the nerve soothe, which is Melissa combined with a couple other things and
Mhm.
applied as a body tonic. That will make me sleep through most of the night. I would honestly start with the St. John's wort thing first and
Okay.
see how well that works for you.
All
And,
right.
and because part of the issue is it's probably hormonal. Like, there's some hormone that starts kicking in about 2-3 o'clock in the morning and says like, Ralph, get up. You got to do
Yeah.
something. And you get up and you're like, there's nothing to do. And it's like, no, really, you should get up.
Didn't we just talk about
Never mind.
Didn't we
Yeah,
just
never
talk
mind.
about pattern interrupts and things?
Right,
Let me go back
right.
to my notes here.
But the thing that's really nice about the St. John's wort is it is a blood purifier and
Mhm.
it helps clean up some of the hormones that are like lingering or that are causing that.
Okay.
And so that way it's just like fresh hormones hitting the system, because
Mhm.
sometimes it's in there and it's just circulating around and just hitting the receptor site. So it's either still being produced or there's just some of that hormone around that then, you reach a certain level of relaxation, and then it starts waking you up to, take some sort of action that there's nothing going on, but,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. Right.
so that's where I would start. That's the simplest approach. That's the easiest approach.
Mm-hmm.
And if that doesn't work, then we can start going, well, maybe you address something in the endocrine system, or maybe, there's something else going on a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like a deeper state of relaxation in the nervous system, but still the hormones can be kicking the nervous system in. So I
Mhm.
like to kind of do the St. John's wort. You're falling asleep fine, you're going to
Yeah.
sleep fine, you're in deep sleep fine. It's just, that thing happens about 2 or 3 in the morning. And so I noticed that, especially if it's hormonal, the more that really gets ingrained, the
Mhm.
harder it is to fall asleep after you've waken up like that.
Yeah.
And so that is a little bit of an indicator that it's hormonal, but still the St. John's wort should help clean that up.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
All right.
Any sort of
Um,
tinfoil will work for that hat. You can use any sort of, tinfoil.
Okay.
for
So
that.
I don't have to get Reynolds. I can use the
No,
local
you
Mexican brand.
can use the generic. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Coffee for skin detoxing.
Mhm.
Is there a place on the body that's better to apply a coffee? And I'm going to use witch hazel as
Sure.
a carrier.
Oh, that's a great
Any place
idea.
on the body, like all over the feet.
I would hit the hot spots. Like if you have an ache or a pain, I'd hit those
Okay.
spots. Like if you have a bad back or a bad knee, I'd go
Yeah.
to those spots. I'm going to share my first experience, because I'd looked for coffee for a long time, because in the old days I used to take a big bottle of instant coffee and
Mhm.
dump it in the bathtub and take a coffee bath that way. And it left a coffee ring, and it's expensive. And so I was always looking for like coffee to oil.
Mhm.
And when I first found it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be amazing. I'm gonna put it on my feet. And then I put it, I was just putting it neat on my, I put a bunch of drops in my hand, I'd rub it like this, and then I just rub it on my feet. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my God, my feet feel so good. But my lower legs kind of hurt. And so I did it on my lower legs. And then I was like, now my legs, my thighs hurt. And then it was like in my hips. And then I was about up to here. And I was like, I probably should have just done my whole body right off the bat. But I went to my hot spot. And at the time I was having some weird foot thing. Like I'd strained my foot.
Mhm.
It's a long story, but you know. And so I was like, oh, I'll go to my feet. This will feel amazing. And plus the energetic component and all that.
Mhm.
Ended up doing everything, including my face, by the way, which I
Yeah.
didn't suggest, but it felt good. So if just your hot spots feels good, because like say you have a bad shoulder,
Right.
there's muscle, there's fascia, there's stagnant lymph, there's everything. But if you look at the skin clairvoyantly or even scan it, it's not functioning like it should, like compared to other parts of the body. Even
Okay.
though it's not a skin issue, because of what's happening underneath, it's reflected in the skin.
Mhm.
And so you're really wanting to kind of unwind some of those spots so that it impacts the tissue below it, but it also doesn't start spreading out in the skin.
Mhm.
And anytime you detoxify the skin, it stimulates the lungs, the liver, the gallbladder, the kidneys, and the spleen to detoxify. So it is, in my book, a win-win situation. Like it is a super good thing to do.
Okay. All right. I'll start with the hot spots and
Yeah, there you go.
might wind up doing a coffee spitz
Coffee
bath.
salt baths are amazing. Like
Okay.
I did them every day for like, I can't remember, it was like 2 years or something.
Mhm.
It was a game changer for me, like a game changer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Red mandarin, what's it good for?
Red mandarin, very uplifting, antispasmodic, good for the nervous system. You could actually even use it for opening up the chest a bit. Like you could use it in treatment for like asthma, things like this, especially early stages.
Yeah.
I find that it's even helpful, like with like if you're feeling a little anxious or a little wound up. I mean, it's not the top shelf thing to use, but you don't always have to use top shelf. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'll go to a lot of just the bread and butter oils and think, yeah, I got something fancier. And I mean, perfect example: marjoram, hyssop, sage. Like they're rock stars, you know. And so mandarin does a lot of kind of antispasmodic, soothing, good for the nerves, fortifying. And any citrus is very uplifting. So even if you're feeling like a little fatigued or a little bit like you just got the blahs,
Yeah.
citruses are really good to go to. Citruses are really good to go to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because one of the things that I'm noticing at my age is I don't have the get up and go that I used to have. So
Work that 3 wise men that you got not too long ago. Really,
Yeah.
really work that. It pumping up the endocrine system,
Yeah.
jump starting all of that. You know, it's not going to be like when you're 20, but it's helpful. Like I find it to be incredibly helpful.
Okay. All right. Bergamot versus bergamot mint.
Bergamot mint is a little bit more directed to the digestive tract. Bergamot is, man, bergamot. We were just talking about that last night here. It's again good for anxiety. It's very soothing. It is actually a very good in the essential oil world. It's one of the better calcium channel blockers for blood pressure.
Yeah.
And it's also a bit of a mood stabilizer. And so like when I kind of am feeling like go, and then, okay, gotta sit and rest, you know, fatigue starts to set in, but sometimes you're not aware of it. And that's when there starts to be a little bit more fluctuation of like, you know, I don't want to get up and work today, or, you know, you start getting a little bit like not cranky, but you get a little bit like just blah. And the bergamot is really good for just keeping the emotions really even keeled.
Okay. So even though they have the same name, they do real different things.
Yeah, like the bergamot mint is a little bit more directed. I usually almost use it exclusively for digestive issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Very good. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
I finished going through the rest of the classes. I'll probably have some more questions for you
Oh,
next
good,
week.
good.
Why I do have a request.
Yes.
So some of the questions that I have are for some of the things that you're doing with Astara, where it doesn't include oils.
Sure.
Could you do one of your classes per month where we can ask, you know,
Yeah.
Astara
Oh, yeah, I
type
would love
energy
that.
questions?
You know, like on Wednesdays when we do the 2 recordings,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes I'll open it up and people have a bunch of questions, and then sometimes I'll open up to questions and there's nobody,
Right.
nobody asks. So if I know people have questions, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. So if in the next couple of weeks you could do
Yeah.
a Q&A session for
How
Astara.
about,
that
you know,
would be
this
great.
week we're getting ready for WESOC, which is at the end of the
Yeah.
week. How about
Mhm.
next week? We'll open up that first session for Q&A, and maybe even the second one.
All right, that'd be great. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the discussion tomorrow about breaking patterns. So
Yeah, boy.
good deal. Good deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's really interesting, the whole pattern type.
And then go ahead, David, then Leah.
Hey, David. How
Hi,
are you?
Greg. Hi,
Hey,
Samantha.
how are you?
I'm good. I thought about what you said yesterday. That's it, yesterday, Sunday, and it was really right on target. The more I sat with it, the more
What were we talking about? I don't
we're
remember.
talking about how I could get lost in time.
Oh, yeah.
I really didn't see that, but then the next day, Monday, I could see how it applied.
Mhm.
And everything you talked about with, you recommended Galbian. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right.
Galbanum, but yeah, close enough.
Yeah. And I really think that's going to be, I really felt, as you said, it's going to be a really, really powerful.
I think it'll be a game changer for you.
I do too.
It's really helpful with that issue. And plus it just makes you feel better. I wouldn't say that it helps me be more focused, but it helps me keep my wits about me. You know what I mean? Like when I'm starting to feel like I'm getting too overwhelmed, I'm getting too fragmented, I got too many things going on. Like a lot of times, like I'm trying to multitask and I just get lost in the tasks, you know? I'll take galbanum and all of a sudden I'll go, this isn't time sensitive, this isn't time sensitive, this is what I'm going to focus on right now. Like, you know, I get really clear about things quickly. And so I gotta say, I can't recommend it enough. And perfect example of that also is pain. You know, pain can be really disruptive. And you start taking galbanum and all of a sudden, yeah, I'm in pain, but I'm still focused on what I'm doing, you know? And so when I blew up my shoulder, it was painful. And, you know, I didn't have any pharmaceuticals or anything to be taking it other than just the oils and stuff. And, you know, it wasn't getting better too quick. And I started taking big dosages of galbanum, and within a week, it totally turned around. Yeah, totally turned around. I mean, I still have to get therapy on my shoulder from time to time, but it's nothing like it used to be. Like, I mean, it was surgical, to be honest with you. It was a surgical situation. I mean, I was losing circulation in my fingers and nerve sensation, you know, because the compression in the shoulder. And I was like, I'm probably going to have to be cut for this one. And I wasn't responding to anti-inflammatories and things. Threw galbanum in the mix, started responding to everything. Boom, within about a week, it turned around.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to getting that tomorrow. Thank you, Samantha, for getting that right out, by the way.
Mhm.
Really appreciate that. And I have more. I just dropped my note. Okay, so your opening discussion about breaking patterns,
Mhm.
that's really, really interesting and fascinating. So I'm going to try to tune in tomorrow as well.
Yeah, we're gonna have a series of conversations and then do like kind of therapies and like explore therapies, you could say, concerning some of these things. And, you know, I'm gonna kind of like just throw the discussion out and then see how it goes, and we'll do it from there. So it's more of like instead of like going, okay, this, and this is why we're addressing it. It's like, let's talk this out so we understand the nuances and then slowly start kind of treating it and seeing what happens. And so, you know, we might stay on that topic for a few weeks. You know, it's hard to say, but it's just like a new approach, or a new approach for us, like, or a different approach just to, you know, like here we're having situations where we're talking it out and you guys are presenting, but it's like here it's universal issue for everybody. We talk it out, we see how it plays out, and then we start talking about like how to address it. I have a bunch of notes on all these different things we want to talk about back from the years of doing therapy. And then it's tied to even like inner practices that you go through and you do, you know, mantras and meditations and purifications on. But instead of making them like super esoteric, just talk about them in like just real super practical everyday ways. And it's a way to tap into it, and it's a way to just start unwinding it. And it's not like you have to sit and delve into it and go crazy with it, but you just, it's like you touch it and then you back away, and then you touch it and you back away, and you just keep working it. And at some point you look back and you go, look at how far I've gone in this last 6 months, like with 15 minutes here and there. Like it can be, you know, as easy as that sometimes.
Very, very interesting and cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
looking forward to that. And then you mentioned your favorite kit, which has galbium and thyme and sage and I don't know, some other maybe.
Basil, marjoram. I
So
know
is
it like the
that,
back of my hand.
yeah, so
Lemongrass.
is that listed anywhere?
I started to list it a few times, but then I go, oh, it's my little kid. And then I start going, but what about this? But what about that? We're talking about like just putting out like, you know, because I have an esoteric kit and I have like just a bread and butter survival kit. And so I think we'll throw out just give you guys some notes on the survival kit first, and then I'll throw out the esoteric version of it also as well. I want to
Okay.
clean it up because it's a bunch of chicken scratch of my stuff where like I'm talking in half sentences and in code and so I'll make it a little bit more legible for you guys.
So, yeah, I'm starting to accumulate some of these things in your,
Mhm.
and I'm.
I mean, we talk about them all the time, like marjoram, bay laurel, galbanum, basil, hyssop. It's the things that we talk about quite often. Helichrysum. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm always bummed when I'm traveling and I pull out one of the bottles and I've used it all up and I didn't replace it. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be paying attention to that kid.
Yeah.
Um,
Tarragon's one of them. Like Tarragon's like, see, I'm like visiting that kit and yeah, so many things.
okay, well, I'm writing them down as you said. I'm accumulating them, great. So, a couple more questions.
Hmm?
So I'm gonna be traveling on a plane and somebody said, oh, COVID's still out there, make sure you get a nasal spray. And I've heard nasal sprays could work, and I wondered what your thought was on that, or if I should be using a particular oil.
Like nasal spray, what kind of nasal spray?
They said, one of the popular ones, Nasonex or something.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that probably will help. I'm not sure. But when we travel, Monarda Complex, Thyme, even in the days with the mask, I was putting either hyssop or larch in the mask.
Got
I went
hyssop.
through the whole thing without getting COVID, except one time we got COVID because somebody around us had it and was going around giving everybody hugs. And we ended up getting it, but we came home and we had been doing all those things. And the only reason we knew was that when I come back, because we have employees and stuff, we tested and we're like, oh, wow, maybe this is a false positive. We tested the next day, it was positive again. So, we give everybody the week off, or I think it was 10 days, but we had no symptoms, like none. Like we
Wow.
we still kept working and everything. We just we didn't ship that week, and we just did our computer stuff, and we still did streams, and we still did everything. I did a bunch of meetings, via Zoom, and called it good. And so I don't know that you need to. I mean, for me, I don't ever feel that I need to do more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So inhale, I've got time liminal and I've
Yeah.
got hyssop. So just
Yeah.
inhale.
Yeah, I would just take those two, and you could even put a couple drops of the Tylenol in, take it internally, which you're already doing, and then just inhale it while you're going in there. The one that I left out was immune support. Like I had a roller ball of it, and I would just roll it on my chest. And the immune support is super antiviral. But you're already doing Monarda, you're already doing Monarda Complex, something like that. You're good. Melissa and Monarda are the two most potent antivirals that there are in essential oils.
I'm not doing Monarda though.
You're probably good with time.
Okay. And then just a quick question, which I keep wondering about.
Sure.
I like to cook, and I've got all these intense flavors. So I'm using your peppermint oil in my peppermint tea, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, could I use the coffee oil for coffee flavoring without nicotine? Would that work?
Yeah, you could totally do that. Yeah, sure.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then,
it's a CO2. It's what people put in things to give it coffee flavor. Is they usually use CO2s. Yeah.
okay. And then what about all the spices? Like I've got cinnamon leaf, I've got savory, I've got all these.
And you're putting it in a drink, or you're putting it in your food?
I just wondered, it's just an open question.
So here's the thing. we keep talking about this at some point, just like for like a fun little side thing. You can cook with it, but you got to kind of find your rhythm with it. You're gonna mess up some meals playing with it at first. It just is like I've messed up quite a few Mexican dishes by using the old school cumin, not the black cumin, but the old school cumin, where it's
Yes.
just we're having cumin for dinner, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so strong. But
Yeah.
but the trick is like you want it to disperse evenly. So you want to cook with a lid, like whatever you're cooking, so that everything gets kind of steamed in or whatever you want to call it. But like say you're cooking, I don't know, some hamburger or some fake hamburger or something like that. Take like a little thing with a little bit of like olive oil in it and put the drop of whatever you want in and then shake it up, close the top and shake it up really good and then pour it into the pan and it's evenly distributed so that you don't have no taste and then a really hot spot of time and one bite and then next bite nothing. Like
Okay.
it just like the skin, it makes it like evenly distributed within the food.
Okay. Sounds
Then if it's like in a salad dressing or something, you put it in like a little thing, shake it up and like spray it on or pour it
Right.
on. It
right.
works great.
Okay, cool. So I
It
think
doesn't
those-
take much, like a drop
Yeah.
or two.
Oh,
It's
I
not-
know the peppermint, if 2 drops are overwhelming, I use it. And it's fantastic. I'm adding, once in a while, I add cacao. And
Mhm.
it is phenomenal. It's so delicious.
Mhm.
So that's very cool. Okay, those are my questions for today. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
And then go ahead, Leah, then Ralph.
Hey, Leah, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Very nice to be here. I'm a newbie and enjoying all this information. It's incredible.
Oh, good.
I get so my situation is, and I was out this morning for 2.5 hours at a meeting for with family services sort of thing. So it was a very emotional.
For you personally, or that's your work?
No, I was there in support for my son who's in addictions.
Okay, gotcha.
And his girlfriend, and then her parents, because we all have, because there's a grandson. My grandson is involved, so it's all about the grandson's. He's 3.5 for his livelihood, and so my son is the one who's in addictions, and they want him removed from the house, and so it was very emotional.
Mhm.
He has been, barely coping, but they don't want to see the drugs in the house.
Sure.
And situations going on. So I was
And may I ask, like, what kind of drug is it? Do you mind saying?
crystal meth, cocaine, fentanyl.
Okay.
Yeah, not a great combination.
Yeah.
So he's not coping, so he's
Yeah.
mentally,
Yeah.
got a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So we hope now this is going to be, he's been given an ultimatum, and he's either going to come stay with me or he's going to go stay with someone else, and we'll revisit in 2 months the situation. So I'm finding I am completely emotionally exhausted. My blood pressure, like I have very low blood pressure. And my
Okay.
heart is beating really quickly, like it's very high right now.
Fast heart rate, low blood pressure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do we know what the blood pressure is?
Oh, no, I haven't measured it today, but it's barely walking. I have very low blood pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so I'm just feeling extremely exhausted. I'm doing the best I can to, so I'm just emotionally drained.
I bet. Like many years ago, through the years, I had different specialties, and I did do a couple of years with addictions, but specializing in addiction. And what you're going through is actually very common, and it's draining, it's exhausting, like it's really intense, and then you get away and you're like, ugh, and then it goes back and being really intense. And so I like a couple of things for you that I think can be helpful. So first is you could choose between either, there's a thing called ironbark eucalyptus or etheric cords. And it basically just, you have the connection to everybody involved. And so a lot of like stress and emotion that you're feeling actually isn't even yours. And this helps to clean up the pathways where other people's emotions are coming in. And it helps you to kind of be able to step back out of the situation and go, oh, that's you, this is me, right? And then the other thing is, and I like this for a couple of reasons, is hyssop. And so right off the bat, hyssop is a stimulant to the medulla oblongata. And with that, it can help when the blood pressure is dropping erratically or in times of stress or whatever the reason. It can help bring the blood pressure back up to where it should be. So that's one part, right? Second part is it diminishes the tendency to absorb negativity from the environment, from a person, from a situation, from a group thought process, whatever it is. It helps reduce the tendency to absorb it, because emotionally, mentally, you're not absorbing it. Most of it is happening in your physiology. Your physiology takes in all this information and then kind of physicalizes it, and then it hits the emotions, it hits the mind and everything. But it's calming down this tendency within your body. And then it's also cleansing, like it helps to kind of cleanse out any of that stuff that has been impacted because of the interaction, and might be, the family dynamic with the son and all that, but it also could be the care, the doctor, the therapist, the people that they were, the son was around in therapy, who knows what it is. It doesn't matter. Just needs to be flushed out of your system. And you could go through and just inhale it. You could put a few drops on the wrist. You could take a salt bath with it, like a pound of salt with about 10, 12 drops of the oil in a salt bath and just soak. And you could also do it with the etheric cords as well. But I like the combination of the two for you. Like go back and forth with that. I think it would be very, very helpful.
And how long would I do that for,
Until the situation probably stabilizes. Like, those, you probably won't need to keep biting, those 2 bottles will last you quite a while. And, unless you're just putting a bunch on or taking a bunch of salt baths. And so I would just do it anytime that you're feeling like stressed or worn down, and just think of it as like your first aid kit. And I would also do a little bit of prevention. The other thing you might want to put in the mix is there's an essential oil called tarragon. And when you feel worn out, or it feels like too overwhelming, or when there's been an intense situation, I would inhale it, and I would put a couple drops in water and take it, just so it reduces the impact of stress on the digestive tract. And you'll notice that it's like what you would use for like shock, but like a lot of times it's not necessarily shock. It's just things can happen that can be a little bit disruptive to the emotional body. And, you're having to constantly adjust to all these parameters, and you're having to deal with other people's emotions and reactions. And it's taxing, and so I think the tarragon would be incredibly helpful. As like, I would keep that one in your pocket like at all times. Just whenever something felt weird, I'd go right to just inhaling the tarragon until you felt a little better.
Mm.
All of them are very inexpensive. All of them you could use a bunch. Tarragon is the only one I would take internally in water, but just like a drop or two, like not very much. The other ones are just inhalation. All of them you could just get by with inhaling things.
Or at the salt bath for the
especially for the hyssop.
Hyssop. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, lovely.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good.
I mean, that's what we used to use way back in the day. And every once in a while we'd need to add a thing or two, but I used to kind of kid the people back then, because we'd deal with the parents or the partner or whatever. And I was like, use these 3 things. These are your new best friends. Like it just, man, they can really make a difference for you. And even with the etheric chords or iron bark, whichever one you get, as soon as you start inhaling it, you'll start just going, oh God, I feel so much better. You can feel like a tension leave your body. But if there's somebody in particular who's really riled up, doesn't matter if they're right or wrong, they're just riled up. You can inhale it and think of them. And it's like it makes it even more specific to them.
So more specific to them, how do you mean?
Like to clean up the connection, because there's some like absorbing of the motion and their intensity. The body's reacting and you're absorbing it a little bit. We all do. Like it's not like some people do and some people don't. We all do it.
Right.
So it just minimizes what's happening. And so it just like, just keep that stuff to yourself. Like, granted, somebody's upset, but it's not your job to take it on.
Right, and that was with the iron bark?
Iron bark or etheric chords, either one.
Both
Yeah,
those.
just you can choose whichever one you want to do.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fabulous. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And then go ahead, Ralph, and then there's a couple questions in chat too.
Hey, Greg. Got a
Mhm.
question from my tech support buddy here. They want to know if there's any specific instructions for putting that tinfoil hat together.
Best thing to do is like fold it and then fold up the sides a little bit and then just
Okay, good.
I like
Thanks.
to do a big triangle.
Okay, great. I have in my notes here under the endocrine class, long-term causes for cognitive decline, rosemary verbena and Spanish sage, and we can either inhale or do a body tonic for both. Did I get those notes right?
Yeah, I honestly I would do. You could do body tonic with both of them. The sage I would do as a body tonic, definitely.
Okay. Yep.
The rosemary verbena and both of them I would inhale. The
Mhm.
rosemary verbena I would actually take 2 or 3 drops internally.
Oh, okay.
And I mean you could still do it topically, but the sage is has like neuroprotective qualities to it.
Mhm.
And the rosemary verbena increases circulation, like blood to the brain, which is going to carry oxygen and nutrients. So
Okay.
you're hitting the nerves and the blood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the combination of the rosemary and the sage is what's that going to do, or does that have an impact on the lymph flow?
Yeah, cerebral spinal fluid circulation is how the brain detoxifies.
Mhm.
And also like nutrients are delivered and things. And so that is a little bit different, but it still will have a big impact. But like when you really have something where the brain has been super toxic,
Mhm.
Treating the cerebral spinal fluid circulation enhances those components.
Okay.
And so especially if you suspect like the brain has been deprived of oxygen for a long period of time, or there's been exposures to things, or just lots of inflammation in the body,
Mhm.
that I would work in spike lavender.
Okay.
Spike lavender is a very inexpensive way to do that. And it's incredibly effective. And other lavenders don't work, but the spike lavender does. And we did it in one of the lymphatic classes. I think it was number 2. And
Mhm.
we're going to be doing it again in the next lymphatic class. The next lymphatic class, we're going deeper on cerebral spinal fluid circulation, the central nervous system,
Mhm.
deeper lymphatic movement. We're hitting some nerves in the gut that I don't talk about very much. And all of it would potentially reduce like fuzzy thinking and damage to the nerves in the brain.
Okay. All righty.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think we're doing it like, not this weekend, but the following weekend. And you probably have like all the oils or almost all the oils in the class. It's not got like new things. It's just bread and butter oils.
Yeah. Yep.
Like sage, chakra root cleanser, three wise men,
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
that spike
Yeah.
lavender, but there's other choices like helichrysum, Cape snowbush.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the
Um,
thing. I'm going to order up some spike lavender because that's one I don't have right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So what would be a B choice off of the spike lavender? Could I use helichrysum?
Helichrysum, Cape snowbush, even the three wise men can hit that a little bit.
Mhm.
Healing elixir, and you have the three wise men. So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I mean, I don't know that you need to order the spike lavender, to be honest with you. You
Okay.
already have something in place.
All right.
Yeah,
Excellent. Thank you.
you're still welcome.
And then we had a couple questions in chat. So method of application and timing to use Mana essential oil. So
Ooh.
I think they might have saw your newsletter.
Oh yeah, mana. So mana is it's actually a variation of a anointing oil. So before meditation, before bed, when you're doing deep psychological work or deep spiritual work, like I was using it, I wrote about it yesterday, so I was like, I gotta break out some mana and start playing with it. So I was doing some deep work on the holy names for a particular chakra, and then working the Hebrew, the names from the Sharana Gati class. And I'm not saying you have to do any of this. I'm just saying, so I went through and did that, and I was like, I'm feeling a little congested. I feel like I need to do a little cleanup, like a salt bath. I sat and inhaled mana, flushed it all right out. And so you could really get away with just inhalation. From time to time, you might want to put a few drops on the wrist, or you could put a little bit here or here. There's a bunch of different oils in there, and a lot of them are fancy, but there is just a little small, tiny amount of cinnamon in it. So I would say test it on your skin before you start putting it on your forehead. Like put a little drop on your wrist and see, does that feel okay? For me, it doesn't bother me at all, but it's probably 30 drops of other things with one drop of cinnamon, but still I feel the need to say, just check it out to make sure it's okay on your skin. Should be fine, but you never know.
And then I don't know if it was from earlier you were talking, or this is completely separate question, but internally for blood pressure, question mark.
Oh, it's probably the bergamot. Yes, bergamot for a calcium channel blocker, 2 to 4 drops taken at least once a day, if not twice a day. I would say still keep monitoring the blood pressure. There's different causes to blood pressure, so there's different things that work and don't work. But if it's a calcium channel issue where you would take a calcium channel blocker, and you're like on the fence, like sometimes this is enough. Like if it's, really significant blood pressure, it might not be enough. But sometimes if you do combinations, I have been able to get people off blood pressure medicine, but it's a lot of just back and forth trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. There's not like a template where you can go, this works for these things. There's a lot of conditions where you can do that. Blood pressure is not one of them.
And then we got a couple people, at least, if not more than a couple, saying, I want both those kits.
Oh, yeah. 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 And like, especially if you've been doing stuff for a little bit, you probably have everything in both the kits. It's just, assembling them for travel or whatever. But
Well, great questions tonight, guys. And I think we're ready for the deeper practice.
So last week on Wednesday, we did the thing with hyssop and the lymph nodes and everything. Let's try a different oil. Unwinding the lymph nodes, especially in the armpit area, is crucial for things up in the head and neck and then the chest. Let's look at, do you have like bay laurel? Do you have like cedar? Do you have a form of thyme? Do you have helichrysum? Do you have lemongrass? lymphatic blend, chakra root cleanser, arthrocare, lovage, parsley. Ralph was mentioning coffee. You could use coffee, even the three wise men. I think that should be good, yeah.
Okay. Hopefully I didn't miss any.
So whatever you have, why don't you pull one of those out and let's do again a little bit of experimenting. We'll treat and see how this goes. If you have several, I would go with Mo. Eeny, meeny, miny, Mo. Yes, tea tree would work. Yeah.
Did you say lemongrass or did I?
Yeah, lemongrass would work. Sure. So move your arms around, see how, like your shoulders around, see how they feel. Last week we did it with hyssop, but let's see what other things happen. Let's focus on just the left armpit. Begin inhaling. So you're inhaling, you're breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And your awareness is on the armpit itself. Long, slow, deep breath into that left shoulder.
Left shoulder or left armpit?
Oh, I'm sorry, left armpit. And then just be still for a moment. Just be still. Just notice how everything feels. And still on that same armpit, begin inhaling again. Long, slow, deep breaths on the left armpit. Keep inhaling and go deeper into the shoulder. Wherever you feel discomfort in that shoulder, go a little bit deeper. Find the spot of tension, of heaviness, of pain. And then just let go. Just let go. Now, before we do something else, we're going to move away from the armpit. On the left side, go to the shoulder blade itself. That bone that floats on the back side. Like sometimes students call it the chicken wing or whatever, but that's the shoulder blade. Right on top of the shoulder blade, the big area on the shoulder blade. Inhale with your awareness on that part of the shoulder blade. And then move it back to the left armpit again. Oh, good. Oh. What do you notice? You just feel tension leaving your body.
Like everything.
Because like, so here we're treating lymph, like Samantha just let out a big and she might be done for the day. I'm not quite sure. I can actually see that that shoulder is like hanging different than the other side. There's less tension up in this area, but also even when we talk about sleep, part of sleep issue is if your muscles don't relax enough, you're not going to be able to fall asleep, right? So the idea of calming and relaxing muscles through lymphatic function actually is helpful. You know, this next lymphatic class that we're doing next, not this coming up weekend, but the following weekend, focuses on the nervous system. The lymphatic class after that, we're going to do lymphatic work, but to improve sleep. Like it's that much of a thing. And so now move to the right shoulder and you're doing the right armpit, just like you did the other one. Just take long, slow, deep breaths into the right armpit. And then just let it go. Oh, that fell on your shoulder. Yeah.
I'm like aware of the tightness of my jaw that I wasn't before.
Hey, begin inhaling again, still on that right shoulder. You're going a little bit deeper.
Someone's wondering how close do we inhale the oils? My nose is feeling tingly.
Yeah, if your nose is feeling a little tingly, just back it off a little bit. Like, you know, even like here, you're getting it in. I tend to go up about here, but if you're getting close enough to where you're getting a little tingly, just back it away a little bit. You're inhaling, your awareness is on that right armpit. Taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. And go deeper into the armpit and start exploring that shoulder girdle. Where do you feel some heaviness, some tension, some pain? Explore that area and inhale into the denser parts of that body. And then just let it go for a moment. Just let it go. Go to the shoulder blade on that side, the right shoulder blade. Inhale with your awareness on that shoulder blade. Come back to the armpit. Take some nice, long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on that armpit. That's a breath. Ask her if it was reddish. And then just be still for a moment. Close your eyes and begin inhaling on both the armpits. Now move your awareness to the bottom of the throat minor. Very good job. Okay, go to the shoulder blades, both at the same time. Long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the shoulder blades. And then go to the fronts of the shoulders, like where the creases are on each side. And just take some long, slow, deep breaths. Crease between the shoulder and the chest. Now, let the inhalation go, move your shoulders and arms around, and even notice up into your neck. And it's a way to open up lymphatic movement, and it helps to clear up the throat, the neck, the throat minor, the tonsils. It can actually do a lot more than just the area you focused on. You're opening up the way things circulate and drain. And so, so we're going to leave just a couple minutes early. We usually go from this to the prayer, petition, blessing that we do with Astara. It usually lasts about 15 minutes. Tonight, it's going to go maybe about 30 or 40 minutes, just because it's a special day. Even if you know nothing about Astara or what we're talking about, still will be a nice meditation if you'd like. But it is the anniversary of a Satguru, who is a guru who was born a guru, didn't develop into a guru, he was born a guru. It's the 51st anniversary that he became an Astarian today. And for those of you in Pranic Healing, it's Master Choa. And we're doing a special little prayer bowl blessing or prayer petition blessing. And just honoring the influence of the teacher on the world and on healing and spiritual practices and his connection to Astara. So we're providing the link. It starts in about 5 minutes, and you can just sit and listen. It should be very peaceful, or you can do the meditation with us. It's guided. So feel free to join us if you feel up to it. And if not, hopefully you can join us tomorrow night for the Master Healing Techniques. We're going to be having a conversation about some things and talk about different ways and how to address it and what it means to address it. So, hey guys, from all of us here, we love you, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.